And hello, welcome back to another stream, and surprise, another episode of Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. I thought we was done. I literally thought we were done with this game, but then I found that there was some hidden lore that is pretty substantial looking, so, yeah, I was gonna either make just a little, video. I was gonna record this and just post up a little video about the hidden lore, the Calvardian Zeroth chapter, but, I made a poll on my Discord, and, so yeah, the poll came in, and everybody was like, yeah, just do a stream of it. You're a streamer, do stream of it. And I was like, you know what, sure, that's fine. Well, what's up, brother doing? Welcome in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. You forgot your charger? No worries. Thank you for stopping on by, though. Always appreciate seeing you. But hopefully your day goes well. I don't plan on going for very long.
Reminiscence activated.
Because the only thing I have left to do is this one, the Beyond the Reverie. So, we beat the final boss, the true final boss, right? And then I went over to this thing, and I redeemed all of those stones. Which it looked like a normal-ass stone, so I was just like, this won't be anything that important. So I just moved on with my life. But, after stream,
You see the fish swimming around?
I put that, I redeemed all those stones, and I was like, oh, this is a daydream. Oh. And then I looked into it, and I was like, oh, this is actually, I think this is the one that was, really tying in the events to Calvard, to the Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak. So, surprise, one more stream. That's how these Legend of Heroes games always go, though, huh? It's always just like, oh, but one more, oh, but one more, oh, but one more.
Connecting to Reverie Garden database.
Also, I did this. I went to the Project Tearfing stuff, which was exactly how I expected it to go. We went in. We went to go help Makarov with the Tearfing project, and Gaius and Crow were there this time. And so, yeah, we fought them as in the Panzer Soldaten and the Tearfings, and that was basically it. It was really nothing all that crazy, but if that's how the Divine Knight fights are going to be like later on, or I guess they're not Divine Knights anymore, if that's how the Panzer fights are going to be like from now on, I'm pretty excited, because while that wasn't, amazing, it was still like, oh, I can see some potential here. I can see some real potential here. And then this magical Elisa LS, the magical girl one, it was real cringeworthy. I went through it, yeah, it started off, it was like, oh, hey, here's Sarah, she's a teacher for all these girls, but she's also the ninja. And then they were like, oh, we have to assault the stronghold now to defeat evil Rean. And so we did. We beat Rean. Ishmelga popped out, so we fought Ishmelga again, but in the magical girl form. And GG easy. And then once Ishmelga was defeated, the magical girls went back to their home, and the demon lords and all the demons had to stay in the demon world. So yeah, that was that. Then I backed out, and it was all just a dream. It was just a dream that Yuna had. Although that little Mona thing, that little yellow bunny rabbit plush thing, it it appeared on her desk, on Eunice's desk when she woke up, and I was just like, oh, that's weird, I don't remember buying this. Oh, well, anyways. So that's the extent of all that stuff. What's up, Flash? Welcome in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. But yeah, I thought we were done. I really thought we were done.
Connecting to Reverie Garden database.
But evidently there's one more thing. Because like I saw this one, like the look back to look forward, like, alright, that's the thing that connects us to Calvard. But apparently there's one more. There's one more thing. So let's go ahead and do it, shall we? Let's go ahead and do this. Probably be a very short stream today, considering I don't expect this to take very long, but it was a sizable amount of dialogue. These are minute fragments of memories drifting in an endless ocean. Memories of what will be in the near future. Could they be shadows of the tangled threads woven by Elysium? Or perhaps faded illusions that slipped through the cracks of time and space? Auto-scrolling dialogue. There are none who know the answer. Okay, so I got about this far, and I was like, oh, okay, there's two things. I went into it, and I was like, oh, this is actually, like, pretty sizable. We'll start from the top, though, and work our way down. So we'll do this one first. January, year 1208 of the Septine calendar. Between two great mountains, at the tip of a Calvardian basin, sits Long Lai. The town is known for two things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic, and its exceptional hot springs. Though these enticing factors does it continued to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad, yet today it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern regions of Arabonia. Wait, this is more of a visual novel part of the game. Look at that art, though. It's very nice. Even though it's just black and white, it's still, that's real good stuff. That's some real good manga. That's some real good manga art right there. The depth of flavor in the food here is just exquisite. Agreed. The Phoenix Wings food is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but I have my doubts a chef could replicate dishes this unique in taste. The Bichon's Inn's reputation continues to precede itself. Baron Tio and Lady Lucia Schwarzer were sampling the inn's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs filling fast. Their daughter, Elise, sat next to them, her spirit a bit lower by comparison as her brows furrowed with concern. I'm sure its luxuries come with just an equally luxurious price tag, and there's 4 of us, so even 2 nights must have cost a small fortune. Upon realizing what she said, she shook her head. I didn't mean to damper the mood. I know we have the money, but all my budgeting, the student council president has made a terrible habit of me seeing the numbers and everything. Her older brother Rean couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then, the budget buster and you will like how much we saved, because we're not here as paying customers. We were here invited by the owners personally. They said they wanted to get to know us since we run similar establishments, so here we are, and we'll be inviting them to Ymir sooner than later, of course. Right, Dad? Oh, absolutely. And this is the list of boons coming from our countries finally coming to terms with one another. The Republic is reveling in unheard-of levels of prosperity, and the relations between our people are more active and festive than ever. I, for one, welcome any opportunity to further foster friendship. The Baron took another healthy sip of his baijiu before continuing. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame that the world tends to overcomplicate that simple concept. Seeing her husband's glass was almost empty, Lucia filled it to the brim while adding her own thoughts. That's all the more reason why we need to make the most of this invitation and enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Their children nodded in agreement, and even that aside, there's no reason to spoil a family vacation when we so rarely have time to take them. Oh, I've read about some unusual sweet dishes worth trying here. Would you like to share some with me, Rean? In a bit, thinking of taking another soak in the hot springs, so I might be in the mood for something sweet after. The food here is delicious, but as far as I'm concerned, the hot springs are the real star of the show. Haha, that's my boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them pass him by. He was as fond as their quality and soothing effects as Rean, enthusiasm undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone to the width of his smile. Their medicinal spring happens to be the favorite of mine. I can't help but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can't believe it. I've always known about them, but here's the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm you right to your core. Think we could make one available at the Phoenix Wings. Be worth a try, but this comes with its own obstacles. For as many problems as Theo expressed in practical terms, Rean held just as many proposed solutions. The conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving the ladies in the house to pleasantly bask in the glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All 4 felt the same. that it had been too long since they could enjoy each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. Family bonding nice? Yeah, it is. That night, after indulging his post-dinner soak in the springs, telling his family he was going for a walk, Rean departed the inn. Alright, let's do this. He took in a deep breath, the crisp night air of long life filling his lungs. The hot springs were an excellent bonus to this trip, to be sure, but it was not the real reason he agreed to visit. He had come in search of Yun Ka-Fai, the famed sword hermit. Master Ka-Fai was the founder of the 8 Leaves, One Blade School, of which Rean was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants on the continent. They had not met since Rean's enrollment at Thor's. Many a letter was exchanged during the 4 years that followed, but even they had stopped after Rean earned the right to call himself a Divine Blade over a year ago. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master, what he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a Divine Blade, the true meaning behind the final blade to master the 8 Leaves. There's plenty I'd like to ask that I have nothing to do with swordsmanship too. All these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from their old master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sword, but wherever he was now, he was next to impossible to track. That was until word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Rean's ears. Men had a fondness for the town's specialties, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew from the letters before they stopped that he intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of the more plausible stopping points. The word came to him just as the Schwarzers were invited to stay at the inn during their New Year vacation. Rean's instincts told him how the timing was a little too fortunate. With how vague the lead was, even it would most likely result in him leaving the same as he had arrived. While he had not discussed the rumor being key to his travel here, his family seemed to sense it was more than a simple pleasure trip for him. I no doubt would have a great time catching up with them, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. Those thoughts in Rean's mind, he made his way through the night streets. What's up, Whiskers? Welcome on in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. We reading. Long Lai's architecture was distinctly Eastern, making it a uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvard's towns and cities. It was not to say it was similar to Crossbow's East Street. With subtle colors paired with a dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concepts of wabi-sabi. I don't know if I pronounced that right at all. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to contrastly lively evenings, where tourists both westward and further eastward were greeted to stalls dedicated to the hot springs, and more, this too, held a traditional sort of charm. Rean asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, someone sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from their stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, would make excellent gifts for his friends, his co-workers, and his students. I can't believe it's almost time for them to graduate. I might be more emotional about theirs than I was for mine. For the first time, Rean would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. The first year had been eventful, to say the least. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and mounting tension had slowly grown into one of compassion and understanding for one another. It was with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them that they grew not only as individuals, but as a team. He hoped this period would remain as much a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the Retributive Tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. In that time, Rean students continued to mature, building on everything they accomplished in their first year to prepare for and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or by learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their paths up till now had been well worn, and, while they may have had to rest from time to time, he was proud to be a part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. As their second year drew to a close, lacking in grandiose events but still rewarding in its own right, it was this mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him most. Can't believe I'll be going through it all over again next year, and even the year after that. Hell of a career I chose to pursue, huh? He didn't know when he stopped walking, realizing that he resumed his search, paying respect and mind to the many generations of educators who came before him. No matter where he looked, he could not find Master Ka-Fai in Long Lai. It was, however, still early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wandering such terrain at night wasn't going to be ideal, but Rean was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck his souvenirs somewhere secure, he then departed for his new destination. The mountain's winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night. But they were not off-limits as such. The key, Rean knew, would be to not rely on sight alone. His senses of hearing and smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. Calling upon his experience and intellect to heighten all 5 senses, he took in his surroundings in full. This really takes me back to training in the mountains. To call the experience training would imply his time being one of the simple tutelage between student and master, but equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it was now, with some days requiring him to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to find the day's food to survive. It sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for a similar exercise a long time ago. Rean was certain to think on the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. Humans always leave something indicative of their presence behind that no wild creature could, be it a long-dead fire, footprints, or traces of going on the hunt. One only need to follow the light to lead to their source. Rean did so, advancing with the caution instilled in him by both his old master and hunting enthusiast of a father. They soon led him precisely to clear evidence that a human had been in the area, though the evidence itself was far from what he expected. Remains of a camp? No. It didn't look like it had been left by martial artists in training or roaming hunters, but the most peculiar thing that there was multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. It was as though something was being measured. Maybe this is from a group of scholars doing field research, but it seems too large in scale for that. There was nothing more to be found here, Rean advanced. Soon after, he found himself another unusual mound of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through here in a car, or more like hacked open a path wide enough for a car to pass through. On further inspection was suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavor, leading him to wonder if they somehow found success elsewhere. And if they did, why had they done all this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountain certainly were not it, but instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. Keep following this trail a little further. At this thought, Rean sensed someone approaching. 1, 2 people? Yes, there were 2, and it was clear they were aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for the strange trails, but a deadly tension now thickened the air told him they were no simple scholars. He felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well, and then he felt them stop. How about you show yourselves? He spoke without placing his hand on his tachi, signifying to those watching that he had no desire to fight. The silhouettes then silently emerged from the darkest shadows of the mountains. They looked very much like the shinobi of the east he had heard about, in forms clad from top to bottom in black garments and their faces fully obscured. I see your insight poses a threat after all, divine blade of the Empire. The contact with our client has yet to begin, but we will make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons. The silhouettes then charged. It caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Rean's eyes widened in surprise, but nearly in the same moment he was in a fighting stance, hands still over his still-sheathed tachi. Fifth form, Morning Moon! He perceived the direction of his foe's attacks to evade them, and mounted a counterattack of his own. All it took was that instant to repel their assault and leave them vulnerable. Ordinarily, this would be the time to take the offensive, but all Rean could do was stare at the two with disbelief. A thought entered my mind as I saw you move, but now that we've crossed the blades... He paused, disbelief in his eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. Are you... practitioners of the Eight-Leaf School? And the pause this time from the silhouettes before answering, as though they were well aware of the question was coming. No, though we do possess ties to the school. We are the Ikaruga, practitioners of the Black God One-Blade School. The what? Rean was left stunned. The two Ikaruga held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust them forward at any moment. It was as though they wanted to make clear that while they had been caught off guard once, it would not be so fortunate twice. Rean responded by assuming the middle stance with his tachi, just as the sides were only a beat away from engaging in battle. What could only be described as a black cyclone roared from the darkness at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. It appearance caught Rean by surprise more than the initial attack by the silhouettes. He had not suspected an attack from that angle, that distance, or even that moment. His enemies, on the other hand, did not so much as flinch at the sight. The approaching blade, over an arch and a half in length, was heading directly for Rean's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. Perhaps he should have noticed. Perhaps it was impossible to notice. Whatever the answer, the divine blade of the Empire would soon fall. Silhouettes waited for his final moments to be, convinced of no other fate in his future. When Rean suddenly spun his body in a full circle, applying the intensity built into his tachi from the motion to swing. The blow was weighted yet precise, shifting the incoming blade to a new direction, without mitigating its near overpowering force. The technique was an application of the first form Helix. There was no greater course in the moment than to use it to redirect the attack without it ever making direct contact. The spinning blade was now significantly off its intended course. Rean slashed at it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying hairs to the right of the direction it had come from. A hand was there to deftly catch it mid-air. Ooh, damn. You may have only recently taken the title, but you are worthy of being called a divine blade. All the same, you used the unclouded eye well. From his hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments to the silhouettes, something about his presence was much more inspired by comparison. His musculature was thoroughly discernible through his body covering fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation, and the faint light of his eyes, visible through his mask, projected no emotion whatsoever. The man possessed the aura of a true warrior, one projected only by those who had fought more battles than there was possible to count. Fall back. He's too formidable a foe for you to handle. The silhouette slid into the darkness in an instant. Only the new arrival was left to face Rean. I need to know, who are you, and why did you attack me? Our contract forbids the disclosure of such information. You will leave this place now, fledgling divine blade. The tone was not one of advice nor one of an order. It was as if a man were stating a fact, his calmness unveiling an undertone of malice that told Rean what would happen if he did not do as was told. I'm afraid I can't do that without an explanation, not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I understand, then. There's no longer anything to discuss. All they could do was battle. I, Kurogane of the Rogetsu School, shall be your opponent. Kurogane stood at attention, the large blade he had thrown before now pointed. I'd have rather settled this with words, but I can see that's not an option. Rean sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then, Rean Schwarzer, master of the 8 Leaves One Blade School's 7th form, shall be yours. The divine blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kurogane wielded was less akin to a sword and more 4 equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting to a single point. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken as though it was a simple child's toy spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even if he was not infallible, or it was not one to be ideally used in close-range combat. Kurogane appeared to have no other key weapons on hand either, meaning that if Rean could force him to fight where he would be at his most disadvantageous, he would most very likely come out the victor. This was what he had his mind in when choosing to act first. Second form, Gale! He closed the gap between them, drew his blade and made a wide swing towards his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kurogane blocked the blow with ease. That, however, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Rean knew well this man's capabilities. So long as the gap between them was closed, and it was, he considered the attack a success. But just as he thought he would be able to push onward and overpower his foe by mounting a newly fierce assault, Kurogane had split his cross-shaped shuriken in half. The ease at which he did it made it clear this was intended by design. He can dual-wield double sabers? There was no hiding his shock. In the West, double sabers were seen as relics from the Dark Ages that were difficult to utilize. Crow was the only person Rean knew who was competent with one, and then only one. The skill it would take to use two was almost too difficult to fathom. His surprise created an opening that Kurogane was not going to let pass unexploited. Possessing two twin two-ended blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerable more strikes than Rean, giving him no chance to push back. Morning, Higami. Welcome on in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. We're reading this this chapter that's in between. What's happening between Cold Steel? The thing that's happening between the Trails of Reverie, the Cold Steel arc, and the Trails Through Daybreak arc. Wasn't planning on stream today, but you know, here we are. And thank you for the hydrate. But so far it's been pretty interesting. Rean's out here in Calvard, and he's found some shinobis, some ninjas. Steel sparked as their weapons clashed. Kurogane was dominant for some time, but it could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Rean. This was in due part to him being used to fighting the weapon that defied rationale, but it was also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for, the perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they would appear to have, something inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he also used them as a shuriken, but the length of Kurosane's saber were even shorter than Kuro's, meaning Rean would have to adjust with the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kurogane's reach, and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. It was calculated quickly thanks to Kurogane's frequent rapid attacks, meaning all Rean had to do now was wait for the right moment. The moment would come in the form of his opponent, showing impatience for a stalled battle, driving him to take an unneeded step forward. Rean evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning it with an upward diagonal slash. In a forceful swing of his touch, he made contact with the handle of Kurogane's own swung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Rean dashed forward to make use of his availed opportunity, but only after a flicker of bewilderment, Kurogane moved to deny him. He blocked Rean's attack with the double saber still in his possession and hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, driving backwards a significant distance while doing so. Very good, Divine Blade of the Eight Leaves. You may pale to the skills of our princess, but you without doubt deserve your reputation. Princess? Rean's invitation was when unanswered as Kurogane took a notably different stance than before. I shall demonstrate my respect to your skill with my finest technique. This put Rean staunchly on guard. Since it's heightened, he focused every nerve on his body, fixating his eyes on whatever was to come of Kurogane, who was now gone. Nothing remained where Rean's opponent had just stood. He hadn't taken his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, yet Kurogane was nowhere to be seen. How? Had he moved that quickly? Was it some kind of spatial translocation? There's no signs to indicate either one. Was it that he never moved at all and was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't it either. The double saber Rean had to repel to the ground was also gone. I can still sense him, so he hasn't gone far. Rean suppressed the panic welling up within him, honing his senses a second time. Then there was another black cyclone swirled towards him from the shadows. He had half expected something of this nature, so with a little deviation, he was able to deflect it as he did the first time. The attack indicated that Kurogane had reassembled his shuriken after recovering its lost half, so he could throw it again. It also indicated, together with the slight changes in his surroundings, where he was now positioned. Rean needed a little more time to know where he was for certain, but ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came at him again from a new angle. That was fast. Though he blocked his attack as well as the last, before he had fully corrected his posture, the next cyclone approached. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. This thing's going burr. There was another. The time was shorter, and another, shorter. Soon, these assorted smaller cyclones were seemingly growing into a blended grand storm of death, with Rean trapped at its center. This doesn't feel like I'm being attacked by a single person. Did he make phantom copies of himself? He had no idea where the next cyclone would form, and by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even the unclouded eye wasn't going to be enough for him to deduce Kurogane's location. He had also been able to repel every blade that met with him so far, but this was growing increasingly difficult. I didn't want to use it, but I'm not sure I have a choice. Well aware that doing so would place him in danger, Rean took his mind off the battle. He gave up blocking and evading attacks, dedicating the bare minimum of his focus to not sustaining lethal blows, and focusing his mind inward. He focused on the power that he had long cultivated inside of him, the power he had feared, loathed, and rejected. The power he now relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. The power he faced with his loved ones at his side, making it a true part of himself. With his mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Enlightened spirit unification! He imbued his Tachi with a great power surging out of him, crying out as he did so, and spinning his body forcefully around to create a bladed circle around him. The energy released by his Tachi repelled all forthcoming shuriken with ease, and with them, Kurogane's phantom copies lurking in the darkness faded to nothing. And with that, there you are! He charged towards Kurogane, the man who was thoroughly overwhelmed by Rean's sudden counterattack, throwing him completely off balance. There was nothing he could do to repel what would come next. It's time to settle this. Rean swung his Tachi downward while pouring all of his might into a final single strike, but just as the two felt the battle was coming to an end, Zeroth form, duality! Accompanied with a voice as beautiful as a bell, with a slash tearing through the sky, its color so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. It effortlessly stopped Rean's weapon from reaching its target, but that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic sound, Rean's beloved Tachi was sundered cleanly in two. Princess? Kurogane was also taken aback by his new arrival. I heard what was happening from both our scouts. Could have invited me to join the fun instead of keeping it all to yourself. The words as she chided Kurogane indicated dissatisfaction, but the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. Rean made to see who this mysterious figure was. Nice. And the sight of her alone took his breath away. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be of marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with a long silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Her age was likely close to Rean's, perhaps a little younger, with well-defined features that still held traces of adolescence, pairing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. There was the air of a young noble woman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, and the stench of a baleful warrior who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How was she both and neither at once? Rean could not understand, but it was the very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. In the woman's left hand was a large black engraved blade that threatened to freeze him for daring a glance at it. No doubt it was what halved Rean's Tachi moments ago. That more looks like it's her right hand, but okay. What did... Rean fumbled for the words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hands. The fair-haired woman only smiled as she looked down upon it. Her weapon was very fine, but it was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She spun the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it up towards the night sky, to seemingly display it with pride. It wasn't hard to see why she would boast about possessing such a weapon. He had seen many blades of historical significance, but instincts told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deep gray that, while he could not discern its meaning there and then, he knew was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, one cold as ice, that seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. It came in company with a beautiful hilt of deep red that contrasted its body without feeling out of place. The juxtaposition was, in a sense, much of a reflection of its wielder, with her two opposing natures being distinctive, yet also one. Rean thought as he observed, her blade was clearly something special, but that alone did not explain the strength behind her attack. He had never heard of the technique she used, but it was certainly connected to the 8 leaves in some way, and the skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. He was so fixated on these thoughts rushed through his mind that he was only brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I'd ever meet you here. I wonder if our old master is behind guiding us to the same place. Or if it's just a happy coincidence. Wait. The manner in which she spoke and her familiarity with Rean gave him a theory. That technique you just used was really something. Consider me intrigued, and put you leagues above more interesting than our senior practitioners. So he was right. Are you... Before he could hear what he already knew, she turned away, refusing to let him finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run on back to your family? Go and make the most of your vacation. Just don't let your skill with the blade slip. The world will need it again one day. She spoke with a clear satisfaction as she pointed down to the other half of his broken blade, and then she leaped high, seemingly disappearing on the other side of the moon. And could only stare, dumbfounded. As she vanished, he couldn't even speak. Kurogane left with her. Wow. The Ikaruga, the Black God One-Blade School, and our senior practitioners. Rean had been unable to fulfill his objective, and, not just that, he was left with countless new questions about the people he encountered, and the mountain itself. He felt there was meaning behind being guided to this specific place, but how important or what it entailed, he did not know. And yet, the person responsible for discerning that won't be me. Looking down at his broken Tachi, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. And he realized that, now that his master was confirmed to be elsewhere, the purpose of his visit to Long Lai was nothing more than to enjoy a wonderful, ordinary vacation with his family. The meeting here was but a peculiar coincidence, for now at least. When I get back, I need to reforge Matachi, and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvard, but there was nothing he could do about it, as it was. All he could focus on was training and bettering himself so that he could one day play a part against the next threat that loomed over the distant horizon. New resolve welling in his soul, he made his way through the now still mountain trail, back to where his loving family awaited. Interesting, though. That was very interesting. So we have another hot springs paradise. The end. So we're gonna have so trails through Calvard, or trails through Daybreak, the Calvardian games. We're gonna have something to do with Shinobi then. Makes sense considering Calvard is very, like, Eastern culture type deal. So, makes sense that there would be some, like, Shinobi type deal going on, but, I'm very much invested. I'm very much invested. One was enthralling. It really was. Really was. Okay, but one more. I do know. So, I do know that, like, in Trails Through Daybreak, I've seen, like, the characters, right? Like, we can pull up the, I didn't. I made a different thumbnail. Whenever I was making my thumbnails, I found a bunch of art, right? and one of them was this art where it looked like there was, I think his name's Van, right? Which I'm going to assume is the unconventional student, and the other one was this white-haired lady. So I'm guessing that was her. So interesting. Now, Springs, what kind of mode are you playing right now? If it was nothing quite like what you're thinking. What's up, listening? Welcome in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. Yeah, we went to this hot springs town called Long Lai, and there Rean found traces of shinobi, of these ninjas. The what was it? Black God One Blade School. So that's a name that we're gonna have to try and keep in the back of our heads. Apparently, there's going to be some, basically the Divine Blades of the East, which is kind of ironic considering the Divine Blades themselves are already fairly Eastern. So, perhaps like a brother-sister school, you know? The same school, but just like the rival version of it. Very interesting, though. We're definitely expanding, because we're expanding out of Erebonia now. Like, all these games took place in Liberal, Crossbell, Erebonia, which is all Western Zemuria. And now we're finally pushing more into the East. How Japanese presence in Japanese towns. Yeah, it's like very, like, instead of just like the, oh yeah, this is just a city, you know, it's a city, like you find anywhere else. It's like, this is the quintessential Japanese experience, or Asian experience, I suppose. Very interesting so far. It'll be a very short stream today, but, so I just want to do these two things, but I found these two things, and so I gotta do them. Like, that first one took half an hour, so yeah, that's probably like an hour-long stream. I don't know, I might, what if we go into Daybreak right after this? I really want to play Daybreak. Nah, we'll see what happens. Either way, for now, an unconventional situation, or student. Blah, I can read. Reading these visual novel-esque titles, though, it's very difficult. Oh my god, really putting you through your paces as a streamer, trying to yap. Now I know what it's like when Vardan and Kaiju play their visual novels on stream. April year 1208 at the Septine calendar. Aramis Academy is a famously educational institution in the Calvardian capital of Edith. The name derives from an artist central to Calvard's democratic revolution 100 years ago. This was also reflected in its goals of nurturing new talent and helping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. The Academy placed great value on traditional education, of course, but also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many independent minds from across Zemuria. It was a storied place of learning that reflected the Republic's views as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the Springtime Festival had held yearly to welcome the new student body. It was just another morning at the Academy, countless students shuffling through its grounds, when one of them in particular happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. The young lady had long, soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Oh, it's going to be, this is about Ren then, never mind. Yeah, I do remember Ren as a student in Calvard. Her figure had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, yet her face still held traces of girlhood days bygone. Beauty she was, she never failed to turn inquisitive heads as she strode along. Ren! Her name was Ren Bright. She was a second-year student from the Janus Royal Academy in Liberal, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange program. She had only just arrived in the spring. Ren's goal in attending was not to further her education. She had been considering highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past, and there was little more a new academy would reasonably teach her. Her goal in reality was to use this as a front to operate freely in Calvard. It was hard to find one better than being a student. She already had the role relatively foolproof during her time at Genus. Even if there were limits to how much a student could get away with, the society as a whole was soft on school children. To move freely would also require drawing as little attention as possible. She aimed to conduct herself modestly, as an elegant young lady who wished to remain unseen should, during her time at Aramis. There was just one very big problem with this plan. Good morning, Miss Bright. Isn't she just gorgeous? Look, I see her! She's so beautiful, and everyone says she's just as smart, too. All she had to do was walk down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Her looks alone were already enough to make her the talk of the school. But after one of the teachers let slip that she received a perfect score on her entrance exam, there was suddenly not a single person who didn't know her name. The other students cared not how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention. She was getting it whether she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with the booming popularity this new transfer student had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Ren's arrival that morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shadows, echoing audible tuts of displeasure. Ren had yet to be enrolled in any clubs, so as soon as the day's lessons had come to an end, she packed her belongings and stood to leave. A word, if I may, Miss Bright. It was a fellow classmate, surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their King Bee. Certainly, though instinct told her this was not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made an effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked into behaving as anything but a mature, modest young lady. I've been wanting to get to know you better for some time now, you see, so I was wondering if you might join me for dinner this evening. The boy, Ronald Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. Ren was very much used to being asked out like this, and never once did she accept. She always made up some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today. Some other time, perhaps. This was usually enough to get them to give up, but Ronald was a persistent one. Well, that won't do. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked us a table at a very fine restaurant, so we could discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait? There was something ominous about his smile. Ren couldn't help but be curious what he was thinking. I'm afraid it can't. I'm so sorry after you've gone out of your way to prepare ahead of time. Still, I could spare a little time now, so I'd be happy to talk here, if that's alright. So not tonight, then. A pity. Ronald's tone read one less of genuine sadness and more irritation that things were not going according to plan. Well aware that he let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. Now is better than never, I suppose. This does concern everyone in the room, so perhaps it is all for the better said here. To this, Ren glanced around the room, noticing that only she, Ronald, and his lackeys were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home or in their respective clubs, which some would have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour. She was certain none wanted anything to do with Ronald and his group. He took a step toward her and then began to speak. I'm well aware, Mr. Bright, that you have come all the way from distant Liberal to be here. It's not unusual for students to transfer from afar for family reasons. But here in your case, you came to Calvard just to learn in these hallowed halls. Cannot help but deeply admire your spirit and thirst for knowledge. Pure theatrics, this one. At the same time, I worry about you. Brilliant you may be, but living alone in a far-off land must be a terribly lonely and challenging affair. We all need someone to depend on in our lives, and that would be especially so in your situation. So if you don't mind me saying so, Miss Bright, I believe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you. That's pretty hilarious. That's pretty damn hilarious, considering how strong Ren is. At last he shut up, giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. In short, you'd like for me to join your circle of friends, correct? Ronald's smarmy smile broadened. His father was a senator in the Republic's parliament, meaning he had significant amount of political power. His son used this to his full advantage ever since joining the academy. Ronald had used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcefully building his reputation, until he was the leading candidate for student council president in the election stage in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy into his faction to further secure his chances of victory. I think you'll find that joining us would help you feel much more secure and at home here. Or perhaps you don't yet appreciate just how much of a difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student. True, she mused inwardly. Being a group of high social standing would make it easier for her to gather information. If she could leverage his father's connections to build more of her own, that would pay itself in dividends in the days to come. The pompous boy had no way of knowing the actual circumstances that brought her to Aramis, but his proposal was, in fact, very beneficial to her. She returned his smile with a modest one of her own as she answered. You kind of think so much of me, but I'm afraid I have to decline. Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled into a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor could his lackeys hide their shock. They had, by all accounts, expected her to answer the opposite. Are you sure you won't consider, Mr. Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as you can see why accepting my offer would be in your best interest. I fear if you don't now, you may, well, come to regret it. The last words were a hair slower and deliberate to intimidate her. Ren, of course, was never going to fall for it. I'll admit it is a tempting proposal, tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone win the student council election, if only that someone weren't you. What did you just say? This sudden taunt caught him completely off guard, resulting in a flare of irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. I imagine you don't need me to explain why, but I will be sure to. I have been very aware that the threatening glares I've always attracted on their way to school every morning has been coming from all of you. They've been constant in my life ever since before the festival. All were flabbergasted by the statement, their silence confirming what she said to be true, as she continued. Now, you have every right to regard me with caution. I'm well aware of how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking potential threats under your own wing is a strategic sound move, too. However, that your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. I have better things to do than assist someone so incompetent and small-minded. With a shrug and a sigh in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling from rage. Good day to you all. Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement before leaving the room, paying no mind to the wide eyes and open slack jaws she left behind. Nice. So, Agate ended up getting pretty beat up from another one of Mom's crazy jobs she threw at him. We did get some good data out of it, but oof. Your mom is always so funny. That night in the dormitory, Ren and Tita were engrossed in a deep conversation through their laptops. No. But it's always the same old with all of you. Surprised there's anything left of Agate with how often you tell me she has him nearly facing death. You two are in a rut. I know something that could spice things up. Maybe try adding a little romance to the mix like a couple of bright-eyed lovebirds we know. But we have agreed to go somewhere next week, so we're not in a complete rut. Well, isn't that something? The stairs to adulthood await you, my dear friend. Ren! Tita graduated from the branch campus in Arabonia just as Ren left for Calvard, leaving them no time to spend with one another in person. That wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week, so they could stay in each other's lives. They discussed anything, from their new lives and environments to the fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. Sounds like a legal confrontation between the Verne Company and Epstein Foundation is inevitable at this point. I know, I can't believe this is really happening. Both frowned at their screens. A recent development concerning the Calvardian industrial giant Verne Company had become a key source of concern for them as of late. Damn right, you told him off. Verne Industrial Company and the Epstein Reinford ZCF. Oh yeah, because they were going to try and make a, I remember there was a daydream where Erica Russell, Tita's mom, was trying to get Reinford, ZCF, the Epstein Foundation, and the Verne Industrial Company all to work together in some sort of, like, engineering union. But it seems like the Verne Company might be pushing away. It began soon after Crossbow returned to normalcy after the Supreme Leader's takeover the previous year. Professor Erica Russell approached the Verne Company to propose that they join the West Zemurian Tech Union that she had been hard at work forming, and to no one's surprise, they refused. Before Erica had the rest of the engineers involved could even finish getting ready to go and change Verne's mind, something happened to make the Union the least of anyone's priorities. The independent development of a new generation of orbits, and their generation's long partner. In this subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation would not be a collaborator. The latter had been key supporters of Zemurian's orbit development and orbital technology in general since their very inception. Battle orbits were no exception to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept that had been used as a base ever since. Even the Rhine Company, before the Battle of Jormungand, had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead favoring to develop them in partnership with the Storied Institute. The announcement was quite simply unprecedented, and it sent shockwaves through the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. While there were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned the patent to this technology, the greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole was now becoming unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means, but when those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported that they were prepared for what could only be an ugly international legal dispute. I'd say Verne has the upper hand if this ever makes it to court. Unlike their previous Ramdo orbits, the 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. All of its main features are packed with new tech, with some new features still being kept under wraps. I wonder what those are. What could they be trying to develop that's important enough to ruin the relationship with the Foundation? Though I heard about the government telling the Verne Company to focus more on weapons development. I have too. Sounds like they're planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. The official story is that they're planning on slimming the military down, but if they're pairing that with the latest in weapon development, they're still just as powerful, maybe even more so. As part of the war's ceasefire agreement, Arabonia was required to downsize the military, bringing it more in line with that of Calvard's. Yet if the Republic were to expand the capabilities of its military, its recent force equilibrium and superpowers would be quickly broken. Whatever may be true, I've got a lot of questions I need answers to. Maybe it would be worth visiting the Vern Company's headquarters in Basel at some point. You haven't learned anything more about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? Nothing new or concrete, at least. It sounds like she's continuing her research eastward, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. Mom and Grandpa haven't had any luck in contacting her either. I'm not surprised since the area isn't very well connected, but it's still unfortunate. She's a lot more personable than Professor Schmidt, so having her on our side would help a lot. Tita could only laugh. Yeah, there's a lot of worrying stories going on around now about PMCs and stuff like that. Makes me wonder if none of this would even be happening if she was still acting as an advisor for the Vern Company. The deeper into the conversation they went, the more Tita could feel her spirits sinking. The political climate in Western Zemuria was unusually stable at the moment, with its nations basking in prosperity, but she could not shake off the feeling that the peace was built over rotting wood, and that it would all come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. And blah 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 blah, talking, blah blah blah. I was doing so well, then that provocation broke me. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields. So rapid, in fact, that no base could possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. Try not to dwell too much on the worst-case scenario, Tita. This piece might rest on a knife's edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now, and that's also why you're working so hard too. We can find a million problems in the world if we wanted, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? The words filled Tita with the right amount of comfort she needed in that precise moment. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, Ren. They continued on, losing track of time as they talked well into the night. Before they knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting really late, so I should probably be going. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Alright. Good night, Tita. Night. Oh, Tita suddenly remembered something. The exclamation stopped Rean just as she was about to end the call. Estelle and Joshua told me to ask you if you're doing okay in school. You still always worry too much. I think I wasn't talking to them too. She couldn't help but remember her interaction with Ronald after class, but Ren quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy. Everything is fine. Good. They wanted to let them know if they were being bullied, so they could fly over and help. Ren could only sigh. Honestly, do you think I can keep myself safe from a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they said they were more worried about what you do to them than what they do to you. As her friend silenced, Tita couldn't help but burst out laughing. I worry about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. Even if it were going to happen to me, I wouldn't do half of what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyways. See, it's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. I'm a lady now. I need that magnanimity to forgive the transgression of others. I'm also trying to do what I can to avoid standing out too much at school. You can try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyways, now I'm really going to go before I remember anything else. Say hi to Zen for me if you run into him. I'm planning to go and see him when everything comes down here, so we'll do. Didn't mean to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past too. By the time the two of them had finished talking and ended the call, one day had given away to the next. I had Zen, he was in Trails in the Sky, like drunken master. The morning dawned, yet another day of school. However, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly draw near from behind her. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way. A female student then entered her field of vision. She had lost her balance, her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot Ren had been moments before, but her momentum showed no sign of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Ren was quick to grab her and pull her close. Oh, whoa. She supported the girl's weight with one arm, with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Several students having to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing that the girl's eyes were still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. Are you alright? You aren't hurt, are you? Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl whose face had become quite red quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Yes, I'm okay. You're Ren Bright from the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me. You're very welcome, but I would have to caution you from losing your composure like that right next to the staircase. Do you have some really urgent business to take care of? The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. Nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it's probably my imagination, I felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously, no one here would do that, so I must have just bumped into someone by accident. She thanked her rescuer again before disappearing into the distance. The situation she had deemed her imagination, however, lingered in Ren's mind. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs and could have been badly hurt. Was it really just a coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter, she didn't have anything to support this theory, but with it came a familiar sensation, a feeling of malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for her next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Try as she did to open them, it was a lost cause to get to even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. Damn. Bullying. Schoolhouse bullying. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Ren was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves. Their eyes mockingly focused on Ren all the while. They're not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point they want me to know who did it to intimidate me. This latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were. Because she refused to join their group, her existence was in their eyes now as nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for school council president. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join, or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. After further inspecting the state of her textbooks, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I can make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left before class. Bell soon chimed to signal the start of her lesson. Ren left her textbooks out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behavior. Ms. Bright, please read the next paragraph aloud for us. Ronald and his friends let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighting at the thought of a flustered Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. But what transpired in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. Without missing a beat, Ren did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she had been asked to read word for word, and all while her textbook remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book? The instructor could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student of Aramis Academy, I would never dare to compromise in preparing for my lessons. Ren responded with such grace that she, of course, drew in more sighs and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Ren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with a horde of other students that was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. She looked upward, noticing a portion of the fence surrounding the building's rooftop was falling directly above her. Other students noticed at the same time, letting out screams of horror and worries they could do nothing about it. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted, but fencing was over 2 yards in length. She would escape unharmed. The other students around her would likely not. That was a risk she was unwilling to take. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike!" A sphere of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upward at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply canceled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. This was no accident. The smell makes it obvious. It was a distinct scent of liquid extract from a certain plant monster. One of its properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. This made the fence falling into a deliberate action, and the perpetrator had been trying to disguise as an accident, and with Ren having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was clear. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. But again, as well, they were not the only ones with eyes on her. Whoa, that was awesome! You see that? Is there anything she can't do? Ren's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As if she were a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. This would not be the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle herself with exemplary skill, her efforts only serving to make her more popular. The state of affairs continued for several more days before seemingly out of patience Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressively before her, his lackeys behind him, and the composure he attempted to feign before now replaced by a plain, vile anger. Let me give it to you straight, Ren Bright. You are an eyesore. Even the gentlemanly air he impersonated before was gone. Really? Well, that's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Don't try to act cute and innocent. I put too much damn time and mirror into building my position up at this academy, but who's always the center of attention instead? It's you! It's always you! It's like you're deliberately trying to sabotage my chances of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Ronald became, the more unruffled Ren was in return. You're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This being pointed out caused Ronald to return an audible tut of frustration. Who cares about how it happens? The point is, this has gone on long enough, so I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Ronald seems to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered. Oh, I mean something very simple. You just won't come to school until the election is over. And if I refuse? To this he raised a hand. In response, his lackey stepped toward her to surround her. The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in hopes of intimidating her. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige me willingly, we will just have to make sure you can't come to school for a while. His lackeys cracked their knuckles dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. Well, that's no good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of the school rules. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. No one's watching a place like this, and even if someone did happen to see, my father is a politician. He can make it go away. If they don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw in defense to my position, that is, everyone at this academy seems to already know their place, you see. Everyone except you. He smiled and was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped Ren. Oh, I think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I don't want to be rough with him after what Tita said, but he needs to be taught a good, hard lesson. Goddamn right, Tita, or Ren, beat his ass. Dude really lives up to his namesake, a real clown. Goddamn right, welcome and jump. Glad to see you, thank you for stopping on by. For real, though. Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now do as I say. As the lackeys drew closer, ready to seize her. I'll keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle or Joshua would object to that. But just as she was about to act... Stop this at once! A girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. Who are you? Ronald was visibly irritated, though the girl appeared to be visibly nervous. She continued to stand her ground. This is the girl that Ren saved? I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from her schoolyard bullies. As she did so, the light seized sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered like the sunshine above. Ren recognized her to be the first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her. They were close to one another, and most they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She always seemed like a quite polite young woman with a good upbringing, however, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else's. Ren was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He would never fathom that another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. Is it now? Well, how fortunate for me that I have you to show me the error of my ways. Ren can wait. You're a first year, I assume. I'm gonna have to give you a lesson about how right and wrong works in our society. Upon a signal, Seleka shifted to surround their new target over Ren. She began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still she did not move. Don't you dare! This time it was Ren who spoke up. I'll give you what you want, so don't you dare touch her. But... haha, you sure about that? She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. I'll stay away from school for a while. That's what you want, right? But then you... The experience of studying abroad had been rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest. Ren's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the girl's kind concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at the victory, laughing heartily with all the glee of a spoiled child. Good. Now everyone knows their place here. I see no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourselves lucky now that I've decided to let you go. Ronald turned away and made to leave, his lackey following suit. Good day to you, then, until we meet next. The school will be all mine. And then he was gone. Only the girls left behind the school building. Younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern welling in her expression. I really am all right. You're very kind to worry. Ren's smile was one of genuine kindness. From then on, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as the official reason behind her absence. Students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later for the long-awaited Student Council election. Aramis Academy as a whole placed great importance on the autonomy of its students, and as such, the Student Council exercised an unusual amount of power. It also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole planner for the Academy's festival, a symbol and celebration of spring in the capital. Thus, however, also led to the position being a major status symbol even long after graduation. All of this was why a large number of students put their names forward to become the Student Council president every year. Yet this year, a great majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and others associated with him on the ballot. Couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald and his supporters sat in the rest area, chuckling among themselves at the whole affair. Perhaps his name wasn't the only one on the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give his speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with the same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now, if you could turn your eyes to the screen he spoke of was at the back of the auditorium. It was a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere. It was installed several years prior for uses in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations had yet to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvard was in its technology. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Ronald intended to take it another step further. He wanted to share a promotional video, and not a simple makeshift self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather professional work he paid a considerable amount of mirror for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory was written in stone, but this he knew would cement it that much more. Convinced this would serve as the perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video. I feel like I know what's going to happen here, though. I feel like Ren hacked into this thing, right? And has a different video playing, right? The musical number it played was rousing. Fitting what followed then was Ronald appearing on screen. So, how much mirror do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while. What? The video playing before them was not the one intended, rather than an inspiration show of what he could bring to the student body. It was a recording of him buying off one of his opponents just days before. As hush whispers of confusion spread through the auditorium, the next clip played. If you know what's good for you, you'll withdraw your candidacy right now, or the only thing you'll be president of is a hospital bed. Next was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out there had replaced his carefully prepared video with another. Got it. I hate spoiled rich guys like this, truly, but it makes it so much tastier whenever they get their comeuppance like this. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in an attempt to quell the situation. This is all a forgery! Someone is attempting to frame me! Just at that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. I'm afraid it is all entirely genuine. Her voice rang out with a wonderful clarity, calming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as she talked, and walked slowly towards the stage. Nah, based Ren. So delicious their comeuppance. Bribing potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You're guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what was happening, the student was on the stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixated upon his elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had the air of a protagonist from some epic tale making her long-awaited appearance. Damn it, Ren Bright! Must you insist on getting in my way at every turn? He growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Ren responded with brilliant composure. You are the one getting in the way, and the fair running of this important election. Your countless crimes have made a mockery of the whole process. Ren then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes, alongside the still-running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy, others complete silence. But by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion: anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be the president of its student council. Similar censure from other students followed in rapid succession. Yeah, she's right. Stop ruining our academy. You've gone too far. Ren's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. Students of Aramis had long loathed Ronald's oppressive behavior. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Now that they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the center of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. It then dawned on him just how fragile all he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant, deep despair, and casting a glare of pure hatred towards Rean, Ronald hurriedly spirited out of the auditorium. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that by the time she left for the gates, it was already evening. Yet, even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stepped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one's going to interrupt us here, so how about you come on out now? In response to her words, Ronald emerged from before her for the first time since he ran away earlier in the day, and with 10 or so companions in tow. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. You don't keep very good company outside of school, now do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume you must be off to a party or something. I'm going to wipe that smug smirk right off of that face for good, Ren Bright. My dazzling future in politics was guaranteed, but now you've gone and ruined everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? That's your problem, not mine. Or are you so small a man that you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which she snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. Ah, so tasty, though. Ah, so tasty. That's it! I don't care what it takes. You're going to pay for things you could cross me and get away with it. Have at her. There won't be any consequences for going too far. My father will see to that. The men sprung into motion upon Ronald's signal, but what followed made them doubt their eyes. She brought out the scythe. Ronald could not understand what had just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. The second after he ordered his new lackeys to attack, Ren had produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. Then in of itself was beyond comparison, or comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse, except in this shocking case, Ren was the cat, and his men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had been crumbled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could. The cat gleefully gave chase. There were even moments when she let a few think they had gotten away, only for her to immediately close the gap between them. It was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest, and then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavy sacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one by one by one by one, until only Ren and Ronald were left. She OTK'd him? Yeah, she did. That's what you get for fucking with a main character. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he just witnessed as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs, every last one of them. I thought I could at least have a little fun. Oh, but don't you worry, I didn't actually slaughter them. She turned her gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. So based. So based. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me! My father's in Parliament, you know. Try anything on me and you'll regret it. Her response was an expression of pure pity before tossing what appeared to be a magazine at its feet. In one of today's tabloids, you might find its contents relevant. What? At first he was baffled by this shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffith suspected of bribery and connections to organized crime. Read the headline in a giant, punchy lettering. So that's what Ren was up to in her days off of school, huh? Exposing corrupt politicians. Ah, so based. So based. There's a whole special feature on your Dearest Daddy, complete with evidence. It mentions that the CID is going to be conducting an investigation as well, so this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No! No! So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple word was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. So, now that he's been removed from the equation, I'll ask again. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand, and a sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me, and you'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and ready to swing it downward before realizing what she'd said. Oops. A grown woman wouldn't play with dolls, though, would she? And here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty at her slip-up. None of this was behavior befitting the proper lady she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see he was already unconscious. Finished. As she left the park, a calm young man called out to her. I certainly am. Ren met eyes with a brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. It was safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. Really are something. In what way? In every way, even if I was more struck by the hacking abilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angel of Slaughter. Still hard to believe you managed to find dirt on his big-wig dad that easily. Ren's response was a matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Most people just aren't as cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be. Understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when you're dealing with the leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. Make it sound like you've tried before. Maybe I have. Ren's smile was both cryptic and darling. I've been more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that's scathing while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. I'm glad Grace introduced us. Just doing my job. Ooh. Man's name was Dingo, and he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. He was extremely capable at his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Ren made a deal with one another just as a few days prior. The terms were simple. Dingo would provide Ren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Ren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Both were now reaping the rewards of the other's success. Though I'll admit, I did get some help from a friend. He was not too pleased about being asked to look into the scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. Oh, you just have all kinds of connections, don't you? She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf, but she was off school, and she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued their conversation. You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet with my resistance in running that story. It just goes to show how big a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actively oppose the current president's party, but from the CID's perspective, the chance to take him down was about as good as he was going to get. That does sound like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. I can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. Dingo then made a curious observation. I have to wonder why you went to such lengths to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much? Ren glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground of the park, still shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. Didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I only wanted to teach him enough of a lesson that he'd leave me alone, but it was then that the younger student who tried to save her come to mind. I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him. She then let out a titter that was most refined. What's up, Carlo? Welcome in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. As Ren expected, the allegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament, and while he resigned from Aramis Academy. A group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight, as a result bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in too long. One thing, however, came from that this Ren had not expected in the least. Here are the documents relating to the next month's budget. The Student Council's new president accepted the documents from the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, pursuing them straight away. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on the day of the election, most of those in his group who put down their names dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes cast were disqualified. This was because they were all in favor of someone who never had put her name on the ballot, Ren Bright. Aramis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered with the many liberties it gave its students, but this time the staff was clearly concerned with the dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. Teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren, and in the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of Student Council President. What's up, Apple? Welcome on in. Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. Popping in for a moment to say hi. Appreciate that. Welcome on in, Carlo and Apple. Hopefully you're doing well today, both of you. Today's going to be a very short stream. As soon as we get done with all of this reading, we're done with the stream for today. But, yeah, I found that there was extra content. So I was like, I got to do this before we start Trails Through Daybreak tomorrow. So, yeah. We get a short one in today. None of her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it, she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. I wonder if this is how the Thor's Branch campus first student council president felt when he was elected. Even I couldn't believe it when Tita told me. Alright, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll have to make use of this as best I can. Talking about Ash. Ha. Now, Ren's the student council president, huh? I was wondering if she was going to be. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and the occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries. Problems arising from rapid technological development, the society's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvard. Despite all of those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. What, say we get this work done so we can celebrate with a tea party, The arrival of spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time. It was just another ordinary, beautifully bright afternoon. Nice. And none of that, Jake. We don't talk about politics here, so nope, none of that. None of that. The only politics we talk about here are video game politics. IRL politics, we don't talk about. Hey, we did it. We have finished the, oh wait, we still have more. We have another Hot Springs Paradise, an unconventional student, and now we got another one. Forward, sword in hand. Interesting. I don't care who you voted for. I also just said we don't talk about politics here. So regardless of what you want to talk about, we're not talking about it. Keep it up and you're going to get timed out. Or banned. Teehee. Either way. Forward, sword in hand. September year 1207 of the 17 calendar. Moving on in the world. There's finally hentai of me. Oh, hell yepper, Henmo. And I warned you, so bye-bye, Jake. Bye-bye, Jake. No politic talks. No politic talks. Get banned. I'm moving on the world, but there's finally hentai of me. Congratulations, Henmo. You, did Apple, hook you up, or was it something else? Was there some other, like, did you make some R34 of yourself? Either way, congratulations. Welcome to the big leagues, Primo. Got that H made out of you. Having fun with Chun-Li? Nice. Nice, nice. Well, we're doing some, there's these little moments of, what are they called? The Zeroth chapter to the Calvard game. So, like, we beat Trosa Reverie yesterday, like, truly and earnestly. Like, we beat the final boss and did all the extra stuff. But then I found out that there was, like, these extra hidden lore. And so, we're doing all of these things. Which apparently it's a good thing we did this today, considering it's taken a while. It's taken a while to get through all of this stuff. Who knows how many more we have left. I cannot accept. I was not one to mince words. The hulking bear of a veteran bracer, Zin Vathic, could not hide his disappointment, puffing out his bottom lip with a sigh as he stood before me. Not again. You gotta resign yourself to the inevitable one of these days. Boom. Boom. I've been indebted to this man, who was as capable as he was kind since my first days in the guild. Truly, I didn't wish to be a source of vexation for him, but the wish alone was not enough. I have neither the experience nor skill of to be worthy of A rank, so cannot accept your recommendation. Bracers are assigned ranks based on their strength and achievements, with A rank being the highest, on paper at least. Its members are the very face of its beloved organization, and as such, ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. So how have I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months? It spared no effort in working to hone my craft in the years I joined after school, and certainly I wouldn't classify myself as a doe-eyed newcomer, but to have my name among the greats of the guild, absolutely not! But after turning down my first recommendation, a second one had come from the guild's headquarters in Le Mans. If you ask me, you got both in spades. There's something else making you lead towards a no. Since Awkward Smile told me he had been pressured by headquarters to persuade me, I folded my arms. Setting aside whether you're overestimating me or not, which I believe you are, I would very much like to not stand out any more than I already do. I've been getting offers to be a model, to star in films. It's been, frankly, exhausting, forcing them to give up. Now what do you think would happen if I were to accept a promotion? Be neck deep in the same mess all over again. Okay, that makes sense, but sorry, you're a 1-2 punch in a beauty and bronze department, trying to lay lows at lost cause. With the kind of fans you're getting, maybe you should consider the silver screen after all. Who knows, you might walk away with an award from the film festival. Zin's laugh was hearty in contrast to my unamused frown. Much as I respected him, he could do with showing a little more decorum. It's not funny. I understand being in the public eye to some extent is inevitable, and I've accepted it, but I'm a bracer, not an entertainer. I wasn't trying to be funny though. You gotta find a way to let off some steam, so you're gonna break when you need to... You're gonna need to find a way to let off some steam, or you're gonna break when we need you put together the most. Happens to the workaholics like you more often than you think. I didn't think I was pushing myself as much as he implied, but I also couldn't deny there was a nugget of truth to what he said. We were getting off topic. Just why is headquarters so desperate for me to become an A-rank bracer? I can't see the logic behind it. Well, you see, starting with what you know, the reparations from Erebonia had been beefed up in our economy this year, so all kinds of new investments are pouring in from across the continent. Now, I'm no economist, but people go where the money's at, and where people go, conflict follows. That's just how it is. I say where he was going from there, electing to expand upon the rest myself. So now we have disputes between megacorporations and a stark increase in Jaeger activity. These are in addition to the known growth of private military companies and increased tensions between mafias. You got it? You think it's bad now? It's only going to get worse from here. That's why Le Mans wants to up security here while promoting our rising star, you. They see it as good PR for the guild and a deterrent to any potential threats that are thinking about stepping out of line. Perhaps I was more vaguely aware of their goal in using me than I wanted to admit. They didn't make hearing the answer any more satisfying. If they have you asking me to play my part, then surely they have asked you to play your part already. You've been recommended for S-rank, haven't you? If you know of a better deterrent than having you S-rank in Calvard, then I'd like to hear it. Zin scritched the back of his head awkwardly upon my statement. Don't worry about timing them out, Brimo. Just ban them. Just ban them. I don't think I'm up there with someone like Cassius Bright. S-rank isn't even an official rank, and even if it was, just look at me. Think a guy like me is a picture-perfect advertisement for the guild? I think you have the skills, achievements, and build to be one, yes. It's called hide on chat. It's not called ban, it's called hide. Hide on channel. Yeah, you think a guy like me is a perfect picture advertisement for the guild? I think you have the skills, achievements, and build to be one, yes. A curt, quick response. Alright, point made. I can't force you to take the recommendation, and I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just, let me know if you change your mind, okay? With that, the conversation came to an end, and the guild's bracers gathered to begin our routine, meaning of delegating open requests. This is how I prefer things. It was better to stay like this. I don't know who they're talking about. Like, I know Zin is the, he was the bracer that you meet in Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky near the end of the game. But, I don't know who this other person is. There's a point where I wanted to do something more. I can no longer remember what that was. Sometime during my childhood it happened, I'm sure. I just recall realizing how small the world truly was. So I prayed and longed to become someone I was not. It was around high school when I thought I became that someone. Those years were unforgettable. I'll never forget the unexpected reunion that was had there, nor the priceless treasure I had gained. I truly thought I had gotten closer to who I wanted to be, or closer to who I wanted to be. But in the end, it was just wishful thinking. My hand, once held, was now empty, and I was still a nobody. But I refused to stand still. I grew unrelenting in following my new path. I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. My motivations had changed, however. I no longer possessed the girlhood desire of becoming something more. Of becoming someone. I just needed to keep moving, however aimless that movement was. Well, aren't we looking gorgeous today? With a whimsical wink, a familiar bartender welcomed me to his establishment. He was a tall, affable man who lived by his own rules, never hesitated to lend a helping hand to others. He reminded me much of the Crossbow City branch's receptionist from the few times I visited for work. The place was nearly empty today. I sat down on the counter, farthest from the door as he approached. The usual, sweetheart. I stopped by here after a hard day's work on occasion, and whenever I did, I always ordered coffee and a light snack. This was not a coffee and snacks kind of day. I want something with alcohol. Even beer will do. Not all fazed by the vagueness of my order, he walked away and started preparing my drink. I wasn't long before he returned, and placed an elegant glass in front of me. I think this is a little more than a beer. A little bit more than... I think this is a little more you than a beer. was a beautiful cocktail composed of two colors, a clear blue like that of a Princess Saphiro, and a calming jade. Now that he could tell how disquieted my heart was, and was trying to soothe it in his own way. I thanked him inwardly before daring to broach any other reason for coming. Have you learned anything more about what I asked? Apart from being a skilled bartender, he was also a well-known informant. He was extremely well connected to the guild, the press, and even the criminal underworld, but he was very careful never to overstep his bounds with that last one. Indeed, I found him to be a valuable source when needed. I wish I could say yes, but not even Dingo has any promising leads. Still, I think you've got your eyes on the right district. It's only a matter of time before they get smoked out. I see. Since the guild's investigation turned up nothing, I was hoping he would better point me in the right direction, but it seemed this was going to be a lot harder than I hoped for. Things will work out. Just pace yourself and keep at it a little bit at a time. This also applies to the cocktail. It's a strong one, so don't drink it all at once. I took the glass delicately between my fingers. As he stepped away, my mind continued to weigh through the case I was following. There had been a stark increase in illegal drugs on the market. Not just any drugs either, but ones of the highly addictive, dangerous variety. Heiwei, who efficiently ruled over the criminal underworld in Calvard, ordinarily limited their proliferation on the market as part of their rules. Limiting the number of drugs was of course far from the ideal elimination of them, but none could deny that the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order to where chaos often reigned supreme. Yet the past few years had been a worrying number of criminal groups rebelling against these carefully curated rules. One of these groups was surely behind the changes in the market. And all of this held a presumed connection to two missing people. The guild and police had been tasked with searching for two children below the age of 10, a boy and his younger sister. They simply left the house one day and had not been seen since. Evidence suggested they came from a perfectly ordinary family on good terms with one another, so the likelihood of them running away was slim. We mulled over the suspicion that they had been abducted for a ransom early on, but not a single demand was made following their disappearance, and so it was quickly ruled out. Despite a healthy amount of manpower that was coming from both sides, neither the guild nor the police had yet to find them. That said, the search so far had not proved entirely fruitless. Their last known location was fortunately established, and it was, unfortunately, a popular site for illicit drug trade. The working theory from there became that the siblings witnessed a transaction that were held captive by the criminal parties involved as a result. If that held true, then the longer it took our parties to find them, the greater danger their lives were in. The abductors wouldn't do anything right away. Murder was sure to leave a trace evidence behind, but it was only a matter of time before they resorted to that or trafficking abroad to get rid of them. With each passing second, the odds of the children being returned unharmed were dropping to zero. At the same time, all of this was pure speculation on our part, based on a single established location. For all we knew, it had nothing to do with the criminal underworld at all. Potential dangers thrown around made inaction an agonizing task, but there was also no evidence to go on. Action was impossible. One did Mingo. How you doing today? Glad to see you. Thank you for stopping on by. Hopefully you're doing well. What part did I leave off on? I kind of forgot. Potential dangers thrown around made an agonizing task. Yeah. We could forcibly arrest any suspicious people on sight and make them talk should we wish it, but that would be a direct violation of the guild's code and its founding principles. The Brazier Guild always sought to be an ally of the people first and foremost, so resorting to criminal acts to obtain evidence was out of the question. If only the strict adherence to our code didn't stop us from being able to resolve so many crimes, thereby putting the people we swore to protect in danger. It was the ultimate impasse. As I found myself pondering on this impossible dilemma, the Braziers had placed themselves in a familiar face come to mind. He was a childhood friend with blue-tinged, unkempt hair. Though we had lost contact with one another some years before, he one day returned to the city as suddenly as he left it, soon after starting up a peculiar profession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. The kind of profession that could easily involve himself in the affairs of many and unscrupulous individuals, or so I believed. Just what did that idiot think he was doing? He walked out of my life without warning and walked back in much the same. I spent so much time searching for him I knew our reunion would be an awkward one, based on how we parted. But for him to return after all that waiting, all that searching, and dive into some questionable enterprise so different from my own was almost too much to bear. It gave rise to many concerns as a bracer, and many more concerns as a friend. And one that bothered me most was, why hadn't he come to see me? Did he have any idea how worried I was about him? How worried I am about him? Irritation building, I took a large gulp of my cocktail, and the alcohol only fanned the flames of anger burning in my heart. They burned brighter and brighter still, becoming a dazzling white that projected countless transient images of the past. Then just as quickly as it had flared, my anger faded in an instant, replacing itself with a very different emotion altogether. Why Why did you leave me? The words slipped from my mouth without me realizing it, making me feel downright pitiful once they were said. If someone were to see me in this state. Still haven't moved on, I see. A familiar but unexpected voice called out to me, causing me to jump slightly from surprise, and quickly regained my composure. I just have a few choice words I'd like to say. In response, feigned calmness as best as I could. Couldn't help but think I had more than a few choice words really, but following up with that would aid my annoyance in a way I would rather not further. Oh, I imagine you have more than a few. Right. Of course he would see right through me. The bespectacled man then sat down next to me, as though our running into each other was no coincidence. He was another childhood friend of both myself and the one I was lamenting over, and someone who followed a remarkably different career path from either one of us. If he's still bothering you that much, why not just go ahead and see him? You already have his address by now, surely. How could I with how much time has passed? As I mumbled my response meekly, I thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. Well, then I suppose there's no need to rush things. With your line of work, I'm sure your paths will cross naturally enough in due time. Didn't expect that kind of response. Make it sound so romantic. Unless you have forgotten, I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he does. Now since we're here, how about a toast? I'll, make your next one non-alcoholic. At least you have forgotten I can handle my liquor just fine. Thank you very much. We then spent the rest of our time reminiscing about the past. It had been too long since we were able to just sit and talk like this. It wasn't that he and I had become estranged, but both of our jobs made it a trying task to meet even at the best of times. By the way, I heard word you turned down becoming an A-rank bracer again. Of course, that wouldn't escape the CID's ears. The information itself wasn't confidential, but that he already knew something, however unofficial it was entirely typical of him. Well, the Bracer Guild focused on protecting civilians, while the CID focused solely on the needs of the president in office. Groups were neither enemies nor allies. They simply had very different goals where work was concerned. I know it isn't my place to tell you to accept the offer, however. He paused before resuming, his tone becoming markedly more serious. The times we live in demand a new hero, how much it's clear. I had no idea what a realist like him was trying to say by implying I was a hero. But before I could inquire further, he changed the subject, and that was likely what brought him to find me in the first place. Now, if you don't mind, I have something that would be of interest to you regarding those missing children. My eyes widened from the unexpected change, he then continued. We've identified the group that had made the district their turf, as well as have compelling evidence of a crime taking place. You may proceed as you like in cooperation with the police. Couldn't believe it. On a fine silver platter, he had given me just cause to act, and since the information came from the CID, there's no reason to doubt its veracity. I felt it. It was on the verge of rekindling my girlhood desires. All I had done till now was follow life where it was taking me, and yet here I found myself before a new path that could lead to that someone I once wanted to be. That deviation terrified me. What if it led to me losing someone again? What if it ended in more pain? My fear begged me to stay idle. I was a fragile human being at my core. I knew it well. It made me wish I was anything but. It inspired me to take up the sword and rebel against any whispers of weakness that I played the part admirably on the surface. But if I were forced to face cruel reality in the future, I wondered, would my heart be able to take it? I don't know who any of these characters are. As I sidestepped to the left, I shifted my center of gravity and unleashed a flurry of slashes against my first foe, using that momentum to thrust both myself and my blade toward my second. Two low-ranking mobsters fell to the ground. They were members of a mafia I had been chasing, and right now, I was in the thick of their den of operations. My friend gave the guild and police the excuse we needed to take a more direct stance against our targets. His information was vague, however, so we still had to discern their precise location on our own. I, Zen, and several other bracers agreed it would be best to split our forces and attack several locations in unison for this part of our mission. Based on what just transpired, it appeared my location was the lucky winner. There's the intruder! I've seen her before. She's from the paper. 2 more reinforcements arrived, but I was hardly going to give them time to act. I raced forward, slicing my sword twice as I passed through, and they fell before they could even raise their weapons. I advanced. Mobsters appeared in droves. Presumably, word of my arrival had already spread. There she is! She's the bracer word's been going about. Oh, damn it. What if the immovable's here too? Don't be chicken shit. It's one woman. We can take care of her. They then charged me en masse, at least 10 of them, with more reinforcements on their way from further inside the building. Forcing my way through with how many they had in their number was risky. I knew the sensible thing to do would be wait for the other bracers to show, but I also had to consider, what if my waiting afforded the Mafia the time to wheel the children as hostages? Weighing the 2 options, I concluded that whatever reduced the chances of that happening was worth the cost. I needed to push on and settle this, now! Besides, I believed I had nothing to fear from this pitiful group as they were. Were they seasoned combat veterans, they could have used their numerical advantage to implement complex formations and corner me, but they did no such thing, the amateurs. And they dared to believe they had held a candle to Heiuei's martial arts. In the face of one of my experience, their bloated size was more of a hindrance than a help. They wouldn't be able to utilize even half of their potential against me. I first had to position myself and them appropriately. If I could ensure the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up to the close-range fighters to a single spot, they would soon have bigger worries. Friendly fire. Their vulnerabilities would then spell my victory as I cut them down. 1 down, 2 down. Precious seconds after defeating a foe were the most advantageous. Just as a man had fallen, I was on to another before they had time to adjust to my incoming blade. There's no pattern to who was next by design. Chose my targets with stunning erraticism, throwing them into complete disarray as more collapsed to the ground. 3 down, 4 down. Would go around them in a wide circle, would move between them while remaining ever aware of any surprise assaults on my back. I waited through them till I encountered the ones farthest back. The ones that never even considered I would be able to reach them. They were spread so carelessly. The men took up their guns with newly alert panic strewn across their faces, but their fate was already sealed. They were powerless as I closed the gap between us. 5, 6, 7. With over half their numbers down, the remaining mobsters were quickly losing their will to counter. Some attacked out of adrenaline-induced desperation, calculating their next move so poorly that they fell into my long-set trap and accidentally attacked themselves. At this point, the battle was as good as final. All I had to do was continue taking them down till I was the last one standing. They were smaller groups I encountered on my way through the building, but I was able to disable them with little effort. The path they opened up for me eventually led me to their leader. He was a middle-aged fellow, pacing restlessly around an unpleasantly gaudy room until I entered. He twitched in fear upon the very sight of me. "Why are you here? Where are my men?" Kissing the floors. I answered so calmly and concisely that he balked in disbelief. "That's impossible! I swear my balls off to build this group from the ground up, and you're just saying a girl like you tore them all down just like that?" I ignored his crude language and drew closer. As I thrust my sword till it sat just between his eyes, he let out a squeal. "Well, I'm no ordinary girl. I'm a bracer. And don't worry, I didn't kill them. They only have been knocked out or restrained. You'll be seeing them again soon, in prison." I shot a darkened glare at its direction as the tip of my sword wandered downward to his neck. "Now, I have some questions for you, and you will answer them." The man nodded emphatically, his whole body trembling with fear. 2 children, a boy and a girl under 10 years old, disappeared last month. The people abducted them, didn't they? He nodded. "I knew it. Then where are they? What did you do to them?" They're in a room further inside. They're alive." At last I could breathe a sigh of relief. The most fundamental objective was coming here could be fulfilled. Next I need to ask him more about his group. But you all seemed far too weak to be charged of this district of the city. After coming across your account book, everything fell into place. You're working on behalf of someone else, aren't you? He was so unsure of how to respond that he fell completely silent, but alone gave me my answer. "Who is it then? Tell me, is it A?" I can't. He flinched in fear as I pressed him, resisting as though he genuinely couldn't say. Then just as he opened his trembling lips to speak, I heard a strange thudding sound from outside the room. I slipped away from the man, my sword still firmly in hand. Crunching, squelching, splattering, more sounds. These more audible than the first. I didn't know what to make of them, but they made an instinctive revulsion as they dragged on. They may have come accompanied by faint groans, but if they did, they faded just as soon as the sounds themselves. I remained on guard as I stepped out into the hallway, ready to be attacked from any angle at any moment, and the sight that greeted me defied all imagination. The monsters I fought through mere minutes were now nothing more than distorted, mutilated piles of flesh and bone. Not just 1 or 2, every single one of them without exception had been reduced to bloodied mounds. Some were without heads, others had their organs ripped from their abdomens. Then there were those with their skulls caved in and leaking pulverized brain matter, or the ones with their hearts pulled and squeezed. Each corpse was different, each corpse was unbearable to look at. The plain hallway I traversed with all due speed was now covered in sticky, slimy red. Who could have done something like this? So it was so awful that my free hand, now clenched, shook from disgust. When was it ever necessary to go this far? What could anyone have to gain from this? Wait, no. I realized I just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back into the room I was just in. I was too late. Mafia's leader was floating in the air at the center of the room, as though some unknown force was holding him up by his chest. A monstrous sword pierced through his chest. A single streak of blood dripped from his unspeaking mouth. There was no room to believe he was anything but dead. Like all the others in the hallway, he didn't even have the time to scream before his life was taken. "Who are you?" I barked at the center of the room, trying to drown out my instinctive fear and anger. At a glance, only the corpse and I were present, but as I strained my eyes, I could see the faint contours of another distorting the space around them. Must have been some form of active camouflage. I would have thought it was basic courtesy to give your name before asking another's charming ace of the Bracer Guild. It was a man's voice that projected true arrogance, as though he were above all others as a matter of course. I instinctively readied myself for battle in response, but my actions seemed not to faze him in the slightest. No need to be spoiling for a fight. I'm simply here to take out the trash after they were careless enough to leave a trail for the CID to follow. Was I really talking to a fellow human being? How could he speak of such gruesome murders in those terms? Are you a business partner of theirs? No, you must be from the group above them. Very good. He then swung his blade aside and tossed the corpse off to the side with all the respect of a used cigarette. How could you treat people you worked with like this? People? Have you your ears? I've said nothing about taking out a person, only trash. Same applies to the garbage piling up in the hallway. They've always been so, even before they stopped breathing. It was clear that communicating with someone of this nature was impossible. I dismissed calm reason for an intense, all-consuming anger so great that my entire body couldn't stop trembling. You monster! Before I knew it, I had sprung into action, pouting every drop of my strength into my blade to launch a swift, unavoidable strike. I feel like they kind of have a few typos here somewhere around, you know. Benny the Trolls came back? Not yet. Not yet. Legend of Heroes, the audiobook? Basically, huh? That's what this is it's turning into. Just a VN. But he repelled it with one vertical swing of his own. The one exchange was enough to tell me that his strength was well a league above mine. He parried my blow at the most perfect instant, cancelling out the force of my attack with so little effort that he barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. The active camouflage did nothing to hide the monstrous nature of his cruciform sword either. Its design combined silver and black in an unholy fusion of darkness and light, as if chaos itself dwelled within its very blade. It was no common weapon. Even if I continued to give it my all, my odds of winning against him were extremely slim. At the same time, my instincts were screaming at me that I could not allow him to leave. I charged again. If attacking him from the front wasn't going to work, then I had to go for his side. He blocked the attack with just as little effort, but I wasn't done yet. I refused to stop moving, slashing a third time with even more speed than the first two. I showered him in a flurry of them, each one faster than the last. When I finally reached my physical limit, I darted a new direction, attacking him from behind. Put my very soul into one overwhelming attack, aimed directly at his rear, which I could only just make out through the camouflage's distortion. I got him! However, the second I became sure the victory was within my grasp, his cruciform blade carved a great arc through the air in a ferocious spinning slash. I was able to instantly defend myself against the blow. The force of it sent me flying backwards. I was fortunate enough to not have sustained a direct hit, but my body shook from now being able to fully cancel out its massive weight. Still, I forced myself back to my feet and glared at his form. The difference between us was night and day. I felt as though he could manipulate the very flow of battle, much like a master of martial arts who understood the true nature of all things. He paid no mind to my pitiful attempts at bravado, and gave a short laugh before speaking. Impressive. You put up more of a fight than the rumors had led me to believe. What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? I expected him to reject or ignore me, so I was taken aback when he paused for a sincere moment of thought before answering. An interesting question. I suppose to instill fear. Fear? I almost doubted my ears. Fear is at the heart of all we know. Domination and servitude, order, harmony, and production. All of it exists because of fear. That's why I seek to instill fear in its purest form, much like the retributive tower that appeared in Crossbell half a year ago. Such a pity that it fell. There was such pleasure in his words that it made it easy to imagine the expression on his veiled face. As insane as what he was saying sounded to me, I knew he meant every word of it. You really are a monster. Continue your fruitless attempts to stop me and you'll understand what I mean in due time. He lowered his blade. As a parting gift for assisting me in my house cleaning efforts, I will let you and those children go. Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Bracer. With that, he turned to leave. Wait! Just as I extended my hand, the ground below him emitted a bright glow, and by the time that glow had faded, he was gone. He had likely used the same teleportation spell that certain other criminal organizations were known to rely on. His departure also released all the strength I had left in me, not from relief, but from the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed with frustration that I let him leave, so afraid of what he might go on to do because I couldn't even stop him, that I lost the strength to even stand. Of course, this is just who I've always been. Haven't changed one bit since the day you left me. I'm still the same powerless girl I was back then. Should been a comment on the top, just saying video game politics only. I mean, it's in my description that there's no politics. Usually I pin a like and subscribe message at the top of the chat, but I don't know. I don't understand people that go to video game streams to talk about IRL things. Like, bruh. Bruh, no. No. My work here wasn't finished yet. I walked to the next room, opened the door, and was greeted by what appeared to be an old storage space. There, across the hall, I found who I was searching for. The brother and sister pair were crouched against the wall, the boy trembling on the floor as his sister stood close by. It's okay. I'm here to help you. I kept my tone as gentle and reassuring as I was able. The girl smiled while her older brother continued to hide his face. Slowly I walked towards them, careful not to make any sudden movements, but as I did, the boy shook his head vigorously. His whole body trembled more the closer I got, as though he was telling me to stay away. The answer from the man flashed in my mind. Fear is at the heart of all we know. His poor children were very much in fear's clutches. No matter how gradual I was in closing the distance between myself and the boy, trying my best not to provoke them, his body language showed he continued to reject me. We were now within arm's length of one another. His shaking grew more violent, and though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. It's all right. I smiled a most comforting smile. After that, I reached out behind me and grasped the blade of the knife that was being thrust toward me. I turned swiftly, my fingers never letting go, and found the one gripping the hilt to be none other than the sister. She tiptoed around my back while I was kneeling to meet her brother and tried to stab me from behind. She was a bit startled by my halting attack, but otherwise she stared blankly forward, emotion on her face nowhere to be seen. I suppose he was right about fear. It controls everything we do. You must have been through something terrifying if it made you resort to this. No doubt they were conditioned by fear to attack anyone who came to their rescue. I paid no mind to the blood from my bare hand, slowly dripping to the floor. The cut from the knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. My first priority, instead, was to reassure the girl that I meant no harm. But we humans are capable of more than giving in to the fear. We can fight it. With courage, we can fight it. Your brother was doing that just now. He may have been gripped by fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me to the danger his sister posed. Even if it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe and to keep her from committing an irreversible, regrettable act. It was thanks to him that I noticed what she was trying to do. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm a bracer. I'll keep you safe. I took the girl into my arms. You're a bracer? Even her voice was devoid of emotion. That's right. I'm here to help you. Oh, I think I've seen you in a magazine before. Something Blade, I think. That's right. The nickname was a little embarrassing, but I'd be happy if you remembered it. That way, as long as you hear it, you'll know I'm here to keep you out of harm's way. I tightened my grip around her as if to stop anything more from hurting her and surround her heart with my warmth. It really will be okay, I promise. I noticed her eyes twitch just slightly, and before long, her eyes filled with tears. Soon she began to sniffle. First a small one here and there, until they gradually grew more pronounced, eventually turning into uncontrollable sobs. She had finally been liberated from her fear. As for me, I had stayed my course. I was too afraid to deviate from my current path. Still, I chose this path with pride in my heart. I didn't think it right to turn my back on it now, but I wasn't going to let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so, there's another day in the 8th branch of Calvard's guild. Sounds like the Mafia was trying to copy what another organization of assassins managed to pull off. Discussing a recent case with Zen. Siblings had indeed been abducted because they witnessed an illegal transaction. Mafia involved them thought to mimic a group of assassins known for raising children with the intent of turning them into professional killers. Their attempts thankfully proved as unsuccessful as their attempts to remain covert in selling drugs. The CID found them, and whoever they were working for purged them. Hell of a way to go. If it hadn't been so incompetent, maybe they wouldn't have been purged at all. Put yourself up about it. The guild's priority is to keep civilians safe, not criminals. I don't want to say they deserve it for getting involved in organized crime, but it is what it is. Try to put that frustration you're feeling into more personal growth instead of letting it eat you alive. I was told that while the siblings were going to need psychological counseling for some time, they were fully expected to recover and go back to their everyday lives. My meeting with them had triggered something inside of me. I came to realize that something needed to change. I needed to take a step forward. Even if it ended in me falling on the floor in some dramatic fashion, I just needed to pick myself back up again. With that in mind, I accepted my multiple recommendations. I still have no idea who this is. The times we live in demand a new hero. Doing so made me believe, or think of my childhood friend said to me. I didn't believe I had what it took to be a hero, but if I could even be just a brief one able to give people hope and banish the darkness ahead, then that was enough reason to keep going. Maybe that could make me somebody enough to fight alongside the real hero once they came to light. Well, shall we get down to business? Zen turned to face me, a classic broad grin even broader than usual. It'll be a little while longer before the official paperwork arrives from headquarters, but I'm sure they won't mind me speeding up this part of the process with how much they wanted this. The Republic now has a bracer who has reached A rank at the same age as the Empire's Purple Lightning. Congrats on your promotion, Elaine Auclair, Beauty's Blade. No idea. No idea who that is. I'm going to assume that these are just all characters that we're getting some information about, because we're going to be meeting them in Trails Through Daybreak. Blah. So many trails of blanks. Oh, was that the last one, or did we get another one from that? That was the last one. Oh, and that was the last one. So yeah, there we have it. So those 3 characters. Yeah. Suspension of causality, recording engine activity confirmed. Force connection to astral link severed. No? The whirlpool of causality engulfing Erebos in the fated land has at last been unraveled. Though the bell ringing in the end of days is yet to be silenced. You, children of Zemuria, have earned your moment of peace until the time comes to face the final hour. Until you, with hope and fear in your hearts, must walk new trails. Is that it? Is that it? Yeah, I think so. And we're done. So yeah, now we have truly, officially beat Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. Oh man. Oh man. Absolutely, like, that build-up though, that build-up into Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak. I'm so excited to play that. I'm so damn excited to play that. I cannot wait. GG, thank you. We've done it. We have done the last thing we needed to do in this game. Now we're fully prepared to go into the Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak tomorrow. I'm very excited for. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else for me to do. Like, there are some like little things that I could do. Like, I could try and like power level everybody up to do these trial doors.
Trial door presented.
Because like I need to have certain characters to be certain levels, but I don't have. I certainly don't have everybody at certain levels. Like, yeah, this one requires only McBurn, and he needs to be at level 190. Yeah, I don't have him at level 190. I even have him boosted up as high as I can go. And like all of these is what, like, I gotta get them to 121, which, I don't know, I think like Ellie's like 108 or something like that, so having to boost up every single character to get these things done. But like, also the only thing that these really do is give you, they level up certain attacks for those characters, so overall, it's not even really that important of a thing. So, I believe if I can I go back to the main menu from here? Or do I have to, like, do I have to, like, just leave out of this? So I would like to do this. Sounds like a lot of grinding. Yeah, if I truly desired, I could definitely do a lot of grinding to get into that. But, I don't know, I might not. We'll see. Either way, it would be off stream. Definitely not something that I really care to do on stream. But I believe, let us go ahead and close this out. Close this game. You can also see in the bottom right now. I'll disappear for a second. Where am I here? 126 hours. Took 126 hours to get through The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. You guys will see all the other games I've been playing recently up there. But let's go and truly, Minkyu, truly. But let's watch the intro cinematic again, and then also I want to just like load up the intro cinematic for Trails Through Daybreak. I want to load that game up and just see what we're going to be getting ourselves into tomorrow. I'm so excited. So excited. But yeah, like overall, this one, Trails into Reverie, was pretty strange. It definitely isn't my favorite Legend of Heroes game that I've played, but I did really enjoy what it was, right? I still quite enjoyed the game itself. Legend of Heroes is still such an amazing series, my all-time favorite JRPG, and so I'm very, very, very happy to be playing the series on stream, even though it has kind of, like these games, like Trails Through Daybreak's been out since July 5th of last year. So my God, I've been struggling to play this. Well, I can't wait for you to start Trails into Reverie. What do you mean? What do you mean, Glistening? We just beat it! Hey, let's listen to this intro cinematic one more time. One more time. God, the amount of times that I've actually listened to it. On the title screen, nerd? Okay. I see you. I see you, nerd. Dork. But, the amount of times that I listened to this while setting up streams. 20 times. Feels like more than 20. I don't know, like Code Steel 3. And we had like 37 streams of Code Steel 3, so that one was insane. But, I don't know, this one definitely... I guess it's because I kind of was expecting this to be over, like, so long ago. I expect us to beat this game a lot longer ago. Lapis and all that. Elysium, the Zeroth Knight. The animations that they did in this were really cool, though. I really do like this game for what it is. Like a nice transition and experimental stage in The Legend of Heroes. Like, it was a good time for them to try all these things out. To try and, like, focus more on updating their cinematics. They tried the trio of trails, that whole thing. The new Panzer Soldats. And then just, just closing off some of these last stories. Closing off some of these stories while also introducing new ones. Hell yeah. Nice intro. It's a nice intro. It's a nice intro. God, the amount of times that we saw them, though. The Grandmaster. And, like, she's on the cover of the damn game. But she didn't actually do, like, anything. We saw her in, like, one daydream. Oop, I need the button. Alright, but let's load this game up. I gotta at least load it up. I wanna load it up. I gotta load it up. Trails through Daybreak. Let's see what this thing's gonna be. But we won't actually play this game. We'll get to the main menu. And then, yeah, we'll have to end stream there. But I gotta load it up. I have to see it. I have to see it to know that it's real. I wonder if it's gonna play anything. Legend of Heroes Trails through Daybreak. We'll be doing this tomorrow. And God, I cannot wait. Hey, yo, can transfer data? Oh, carried over save data. PlayStation 4, Daybreak, we convert. Oh, no. I did not play this on the PlayStation 4. I only have the PlayStation 5. I have to see and know. I gotta know. Change the game settings. Target lock, optional audio. I do know this game, like, I read something about this. Command battle scaling, field battle scaling, dash button behavior. Probably just want that to be a hold, to be honest with you. Vibration auto advance. Result display length. Voiceover language. Display. Minimap settings. I don't know if any of this will even save if I change any of this. I know about the audio. Probably just want to do that myself. Field battle scaling, that's probably fine. I'm gonna leave that all alone. Do a hold for now. Vibration functions, auto advance, yeah. Battle result display time. I guess we'll leave that for alone now. So the thing that I've heard about this game is that it kind of combines turn-based fighting and also real-time action. So I'm very curious to see how it's going to be working out. Navigation display. I'll leave it at that. Mini-map, I prefer fixed. Sensitivity, we'll probably max that out, but we'll see what happens. Camera elevation. Change the amount of time for the camera to return to the angle of elevation when moving. But maximizing engagement feature will be turned off. Select target horizontal controls. Tips. Yeah. Sensitivity. Display settings. Then you got the field attack. You got a dodge. We got deploy shards. A charge attack. A dash. Change the leader. Use the chest, ladder, or switches. Instead of X is going to be that one, huh? What's the same about the battle? It makes me scared. I'm very interested to see what it's going to be like. Toggle text auto advance. Yeah, that's fine. Toggle high speed mode, the touchpad, yeah. But yeah, I've heard. Let me look at to what like it's in my description of the next game. It's in my description for Trails of Daybreak for tomorrow's stream. But I'm very curious, very interested to look at that again about what it actually says there. Live in 22 hours. Oh. But yeah, so between law and chaos lies the dawn of adventure. The spriggan known as Van Arkwright is an underground professional that accepts work from any client and acts as a detective, negotiator, or bounty hunter with no allegiance. However, the course of his life will change forever when he takes on a strange case that threatens the entire nation. Slash your way through intense combat that springs to life with beautiful visuals and craft your own gameplay experience in Calvard with features such as high-speed mode and new alignment systems. Which is... Ayo? Oh, what does that mean? Are we going to be able to, like, actually go down, like, different routes? Can we be evil or good? That should be crazy. Enjoy turn-based in the games you're moving to real-time? I mean, I really enjoy the turn-based in this as well. And I don't think that they're moving entirely away from turn-based. I think it's just, like, some fights. Like, we saw how in the Tierfing minigame, they, the Divine Knight, or, like, the Panzer fights, they're like real-time action now. So I'm wondering if like normal fights are going to be, you know, fighting like normal, like turn-based, but then you also have like the Panzer fights or some sort of like something similar to the Panzers. Also, look at that orbment right there. I'm going to assume that's the orbment, the new orbment, not the Ramda, but whatever the Verne company has made now, the next stage. God, I'm so excited to play this game, though. You have no idea how difficult it is for me to not just press the new game button right now and go into this. Ugh. I think I heard it's kind of like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you can change between on the fly, kind of. I never tried the turn-based in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because, God, I hate Final Fantasy's turn-based, the ATB gauge. I absolutely despise that. But yeah, I guess we're not going to be getting any sort of cutscene, which... Yeah, checks out. Trails of Reverie also didn't have a cutscene until you got about, like, past the prologue, and then it was like, alright, here's a cutscene now. But I want to play this game so badly. Either way, we'll get into this on Thursday. Tomorrow, we'll be back with some Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak, the actual beginning of this game. And I'm very, very excited to play this. Oh, I'm so excited. Friday we'll be back with some more Fable 3, probably finishing that game off, to be honest with you. And, yeah. Trails of the Sky will also have this new style of battles. I don't know, will it? If it does, that'd be pretty interesting. Because, like, the Trails in the Sky and the Crossbow games in particular, they had some really weird fighting mechanics to them that I didn't really like a whole lot, so I would be okay if those ones kind of got reworked a little bit. It was interesting with the orbments, but at the same time, it really made the game difficult to break. Because you really had to, like, shoehorn yourself into, like, a certain element. So, you can make it till tomorrow, Sky. But I can just do it right now. But yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. A 2-hour stream, though, not too bad. I wasn't expecting this to be as long as it was, but definitely still shorter than normal of a stream for me. But yeah, it'd be good times. I'm too old for change. Aw, Minkyu, it's okay. It's okay. Also, what's the new emote that you got here? Like a chrono screen. Nice. Always interesting seeing what people got. One thing that I really love about Twitch is the emotes that they have. And it says to me that it also added the 7 TV emotes as well. Oh boy. But yeah, let's see if we can find anybody to raid on into. I have no idea where these came from. Yeah, I have some of them that I'm like, I have no idea where these emotes came from, but I certainly have them some way, somehow. Alright, but yeah, do we have anybody to raid on into right now? It's a different time than usual, but no, we have just the same people that I've already raided into. So I don't know, you know what, I haven't raided into Yuko in a while. Let's see if they have their redirects turned on. Gaida. Been a while since I've seen one of their streams. Yeah, we may as well. Short stream, but that means we get different people, a different cast of people to raid on into. Alright, so edit, customize, redirect. And let's see. Yeah, I can redirect into a guide though. So we shall do that indeed. On the Twitch side, actually, now that I think about it, I said that this stream is going to go until about 2 o'clock on Twitch, and it worked out. That's exactly where it went. And yeah, Reese is celebrating her birth month, Bloodborne. So it's her birth month. She wants to play Bloodborne because she loves Bloodborne. And Reese is also just a chill homie. So let's go ahead and raid on into her, shall we? Okay, so first off, raid a message, and then the actual raid itself. Raid message. Okay, there we go. Alright, but yes, thank you all so much for stopping on by. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, follow, all of that nonsense if you haven't already. I would definitely appreciate it. But either way, I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I shall see you all. Wait a second, I need to post this over here. Yeah, copy, paste. There it goes. Raid message. Yippee! Yippee! But yes, thank you all so much for stopping on by. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one, alright? But until then, you all, take care!